Imagine this: two unlikely allies, a seasoned space explorer and an alien from a lost civilization, standing together at the crossroads of time. One seeking redemption for her people, the other struggling with his own sense of purpose. Zane and Lyra find themselves caught in a battle that isn't just for survival, it's a battle to decide the future of the universe itself. They discover a portal, capable of rewriting history, but with great power comes even greater responsibility. Should they use it to change the past and undo the mistakes that have cost so much? Or will they leave time untouched and fight to build a better future? Welcome to Galactic Conundrums, the place where we uncover the deepest mysteries of the universe, from UFO sightings to alien encounters and beyond. I'm Zane, your guide on this cosmic journey. Today, we're diving into a story that questions the very fabric of time itself. What happens when the past is not only remembered but can be altered? Before we dive deeper into this mind-bending tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Galactic Conundrums. Your support helps us bring more stories about UFOs, aliens, and the greatest cosmic mysteries to life. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. Now, let's get into the heart of the story, where Zane and Lyra face the most important decision of their lives. Will they risk everything to change the past, or will they fight for a future they can shape with their own hands? Stay tuned, because the mystery is just beginning. Zane Carter, a seasoned space explorer, had spent years charting the stars, searching for lost civilizations and unraveling mysteries of the universe. But what began as another routine expedition into the unknown suddenly turned into a nightmare. Without warning, his ship was attacked by a rogue faction, a series of blinding lights slicing through the vacuum of space. The ship's systems went dark, alarms blaring in every direction, but it was too late. Zane was already trapped in the wreckage. He barely had time to think before the ship began spiraling uncontrollably. The hull buckled, tearing apart under the assault. Zane was thrown against the cockpit as the once steady hum of the ship turned into deafening crashes of metal. Pieces of the ship flew past him in the weightless environment, each fragment a sharp reminder of his inevitable fate. The control panels flickered one last time, before the ship's internal power went out completely. Zane's only choice was to eject. He hit the release on the escape pod with shaking hands, and as the pod shot away from the wreckage, he watched his ship disintegrate into a fireball, disappearing into the void of space. Plummeting into the unknown, Zane's pod tumbled through the atmosphere, a fiery streak against the darkening sky. He was thrown off course, spiraling out of control until the world below him suddenly loomed into view. A strange planet, its surface shimmering with an eerie glow, like some kind of alien jewel, waiting to swallow him whole. The pod crashed violently, smashing into the planet's surface with a sickening jolt. When the pod came to a halt, Zane stumbled out into the open, disoriented and gasping for breath. His surroundings were unlike anything he'd ever seen. Towering, twisted trees with bark as black as coal rose high into the sky, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The air was thick and humid, filled with a strange, almost metallic scent that made his skin crawl. The ground beneath his boots felt soft, as if the planet itself was breathing, shifting with a life of its own. His heart raced as he looked around, the jungle pressing in on him. There was no sign of civilization, no sign of life, except for the constant hum in the air, a low vibration that seemed to pulse through the ground, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Zane felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up, as if something unseen was watching him from the shadows. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves, the faint chirping of unseen creatures, and the occasional shudder of the ground beneath his feet. As Zane took his first steps into this alien world, his instincts screamed that he was not alone. The trees around him weren't just trees, they were alive with something older and darker than he could comprehend. With nothing but a blaster and the emergency supplies from his pod, Zane set to work. He knew survival would be difficult, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more here, a mystery buried deep beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. But as he built a makeshift camp, gathering what little resources he could, the strange unease grew. Every crack of a twig, every whisper of wind through the trees felt as though it was leading him somewhere, pulling him into the heart of this unfamiliar place. Zane had come to this planet seeking answers, seeking a lost civilization, but now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he wondered, was he here for a reason, or had he stumbled upon something that should have remained hidden? Every step he took only deepened the mystery, like a door slowly creaking open, revealing a world that wasn't meant for him to find. The sensation of being watched never left him, a constant chill creeping up his spine, even though there was no one in sight. This wasn't just a planet, it was a living, breathing entity, with secrets hidden in its very soil. And Zane had just scratched the surface. Zane moved cautiously through the dense, alien jungle, his boots sinking into the soft, spongy ground with each step. The air was thick, heavy with humidity, and the distant rustle of unseen creatures echoed through the trees. The forest around him seemed to whisper with life, its sounds a mix of eerie chirps and unsettling groans, as though the very trees were alive, watching his every move. The foliage was unlike anything he had ever seen, enormous leaves the size of his body curled upward from the ground, their edges curling in strange, fractal patterns. The trees themselves were twisted and gnarled, their bark a deep shade of purple, glistening in the dim light that filtered through the canopy. Some of the plants seemed to pulse gently, as if they were breathing, drawing in the humid air around them. The further Zane ventured, the more he felt as if he were being drawn deeper into an ancient, forgotten world. Signs of intelligent life began to reveal themselves as he ventured farther into the jungle. Small piles of neatly stacked stones dotted the path ahead, as if placed there intentionally. Deliberate clearings in the underbrush formed faint trails, leading Zane to believe that someone, or something, had once walked these paths before him. But the deeper he went, the more unsettling the quiet became. No people, no animals, just the rustling of the trees, as if the jungle itself was keeping secrets, hiding something just beyond the reach of his understanding. He continued, determined to find what he needed to survive. Water was his first priority. After some searching, he stumbled upon a stream, its water as clear as crystal, flowing silently between the thick undergrowth. The water was cool and refreshing, though Zane couldn't shake the feeling that this planet wasn't as benign as it seemed. The very air felt charged, as if some ancient force had once lived here and still lingered in the shadows, watching. He gathered some branches and vines, weaving them together into a makeshift shelter under the towering trees. The leaves overhead filtered the light into soft, golden beams, casting long shadows on the ground below. The shelter was rudimentary at best, but it would provide him with some protection as night began to fall. As Zane worked to set up his camp, his mind raced with questions. Where was he? Why had he been brought here? And what dark secrets were hidden beneath the surface of this strange planet? The jungle around him seemed to hum with energy, as if the world itself was alive, and he was merely a trespasser. It was then that he noticed something strange and odd, shimmering glow in the distance. It wasn't the faint glow of bioluminescent plants or the flicker of a distant fire. No, this glow was too steady, too consistent. Intrigued, Zane moved toward it, pushing through the thick brush. What he found almost stopped his heart. Hidden within the dense foliage, covered by vines and moss, was an ancient stone archway, the edges worn by time but still standing tall and proud. It was a portal of some kind, a gateway that seemed out of place, an anomaly in the natural world. The arch itself was made of smooth, dark stone, etched with intricate symbols Zane couldn't begin to understand. The air around it felt thick and heavy, like the temperature had dropped suddenly, and a sense of foreboding crept up his spine. The archway stood silent, like an ancient sentry guarding a forgotten secret. Zane's breath caught in his throat as he approached it. Something about it seemed familiar, yet he couldn't place why. As he reached out to touch the stone, a strange sensation ran through his fingers, a hum of energy, faint but undeniable. It felt as though the arch was reacting to his presence, as if it recognized him, or perhaps was beckoning him. Zane stepped back, his heart racing. What was this? A relic from a long-lost civilization? Or something more? He couldn't help but feel the pull of the portal, its mysterious allure beckoning him to uncover its secrets. But for now, he knew he had to be cautious. He needed to understand this planet more, learn its rules, before he ventured further. For the first time since his crash landing, Zane felt a sense of urgency, a gnawing feeling that the answers to his questions lay somewhere beyond that stone archway. Yet, there was also a warning, a whisper in the back of his mind that told him to be careful, to proceed slowly. As he turned to return to his camp, the glow of the portal lingered in his mind, its mystery drawing him back, pulling him toward an uncertain future on this strange, unknown world. Zane had been wandering for hours, the jungle around him growing more unnerving with each step. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and strange flowers, seemed to whisper with a language he couldn't understand. As he moved through the undergrowth, he felt the weight of being watched, an overwhelming sense of something or someone lurking just out of sight, yet he couldn't find the source. Then, Through the dense foliage, he saw her. Lyra. She stood silently, her eyes wide and watchful, as if she had been waiting for him to find her. Her skin was a pale green, almost ethereal, with an unnatural glow that contrasted with the dark, twisted jungle around her. Her hair, long and flowing, shimmered with a silvery hue, as if strands of moonlight had woven through it. Lyra's presence seemed to soften the harshness of the jungle, casting a strange peace around her. Zane froze, unsure of what to do. Her gaze met his, and in that instant, he felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't fear, but something deeper, a sense of connection, a bond, as though she had been waiting for him. She spoke first, her voice low and musical, with an accent that felt ancient and distant. "You're not from here," she said, her eyes scanning him as if she already knew everything about him. Her words carried an unspoken knowledge, like someone who had seen the world change, who had lived through centuries and witnessed things he couldn't even fathom. "I'm not," Zane replied, still uncertain. "But you're not from here either. What is this place?" Lyra stepped forward, her movements fluid, almost as though she was gliding over the earth rather than walking. Her feet barely made a sound, and the air seemed to shimmer in her wake. "This was my world," she said, her eyes clouded with sorrow. "It was a world full of life, full of knowledge and power. But it's all gone now." She paused, her gaze distant, and Zane could sense the weight of her words. An ancient grief, buried deep within her. Lyra seemed to draw strength from the very land around her, though her sadness remained palpable. "My people were once a great civilization, the keepers of secrets older than the stars themselves. We had the power to control time, to bend the fabric of reality itself. But we were reckless. We used our power to fight wars we couldn't control, and in the end, the war consumed us all." Her voice faltered slightly as she spoke of the past, but Zane could see the burning determination in her eyes. "I am the last of my kind," she continued. "I survived because I found the portal, the one that could return me to the past, to the moment when it all went wrong. But the portal, it's lost now, hidden somewhere in this jungle. If I can find it, I can stop the destruction before it begins." Zane's heart raced as he listened to her. The story sounded incredible, but there was a truth to her words, an undeniable weight that made him believe every syllable. A time-traveling artifact, lost in the jungle, capable of rewriting history. It was like something out of an ancient myth, yet here she stood alive, a living relic of a forgotten past. She turned to face him, and for a moment, the jungle seemed to fall silent. The usual hum of life around them faded, leaving only the soft rustle of her breath. "I need your help," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The portal is the only way to undo the damage. But I cannot do it alone." Zane studied her, the weight of her words pressing on him. Her plea was not just for help, it was a call to change the course of history, to prevent a calamity that would echo across time. But could he trust her? Could he risk everything on a stranger from a lost civilization? Without thinking, Zane took a step forward. "How do we find it?" he asked, his voice low but steady. Lyra smiled a soft, sad smile and nodded. "Together, we will find the portal. But beware, the jungle is not just a place of life. It holds the echoes of the past, and sometimes, those echoes are more than just memories." Zane felt a shiver of unease, but he didn't pull away. He knew one thing: whatever was hidden in the jungle, whatever secrets lay buried beneath the soil, it was calling them. And Zane couldn't ignore the pull. They turned and began walking deeper into the forest, Lyra's presence both a comfort and an enigma. With every step they took, Zane couldn't shake the feeling that he was not just walking toward the unknown, but also toward a fate that would intertwine his life with hers whether he was ready for it or not. Zane and Lyra stood side by side beneath the dark, sprawling canopy of the jungle, the air around them thick and charged with the weight of their shared mission. The tension between them had begun to soften, replaced by an unspoken understanding. They had become partners not just in survival, but in something much larger, something far more mysterious. The jungle, with its strange energies and hidden secrets, seemed to bind them together, pulling them toward a common goal. Each day, they ventured further into the dense forest, moving closer to the ancient portal that Lyra believed held the key to altering the past. Zane, with his experience in exploring the cosmos, shared his stories of distant stars, planets lost to time, and ancient civilizations he had encountered. His words were full of awe, the kind of awe that only someone who had seen the vastness of the universe could understand. He spoke of worlds where the air shimmered with the dust of forgotten times, of cities carved into the bones of the planet, and of technologies so advanced that they seemed like magic. But as he spoke, Lyra listened with a quiet intensity. Her eyes, though full of ancient sorrow, also sparkled with a flicker of hope, a glimmer that maybe, just maybe, there was a future beyond the ruins of her world. Lyra began to open up in turn, revealing fragments of her own lost history. The secrets of her people, the ancients, spilled from her lips like whispers carried on the wind. They were not merely travelers across the stars, they were the architects of time itself, with the power to manipulate it, to bend the very fabric of existence to their will. Time wasn't just a concept for them, it was a tool, a force that could be shaped, molded, and controlled. Her voice grew softer as she spoke of the great war that had ravaged her people, the conflict that shattered their civilization. Zane could hear the pain in her words, the weight of decades of loss. But it wasn't just sorrow that Lyra carried, there was something else too. A determination, a will to change the past, to prevent the same destruction from happening again. "I believe the portal will lead us back," she said, her eyes distant as she gazed at the glowing green of the jungle. "Back to the moment when the war began. If we can stop it before it starts, we might save my people. We might save this world." Zane felt a deep connection to her words. He understood the burden of regret, of wishing for a chance to undo mistakes, of wanting to reach back into time and correct the wrongs that could not be undone. That night, as they sat by a small fire, the shadows of the trees around them danced eerily in the flickering light. The air was cool and heavy, filled with the scent of damp earth and burning wood. They shared more than just their stories. As the fire crackled, Zane found himself opening up in a way he hadn't in years. He spoke of his childhood, of the home he barely remembered, of his parents who had long since faded into the stars. But there was something deeper he shared too: his loneliness, the emptiness that often gnawed at him, the sense that he had been wandering without purpose, lost between worlds, until this moment. Until Lyra. As the fire burned low, Lyra turned to him, her gaze searching, as though she could see right through him. "You're not the only one," she said softly. "I was alone for so long. I was the last of my people, the only one left to carry their knowledge. I didn't know if I could go on, if I could bear the weight of it all. But now, with you," she paused, her voice trailing off, as though the words she wanted to say were too heavy to speak aloud. Zane looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he felt a bond between them stronger than mere partnership, more profound than any connection he had ever known. They were two people from different worlds, yet in this strange, forgotten jungle, they shared a destiny, a purpose that transcended the destruction of their pasts. They sat in silence, the night pressing in around them. And as the wind whispered through the leaves, Zane and Lyra realized they were not just searching for a way to activate the ancient portal. They were searching for something much more profound. Something that would change the course of their lives and the future of their worlds forever. The air shifted suddenly, thick with tension. The jungle, once humming with its strange life, fell eerily silent. A deep vibration thrummed through the ground, as though the planet itself had sensed the arrival of something dark and powerful. In the distance, a low rumble echoed, growing louder with each passing second. The trees trembled slightly as a shadow crossed the sky, darkening the sun, an ominous silhouette against the horizon. It wasn't long before the source of the disturbance became clear. The Empire, a formidable force from the distant reaches of space, had arrived. Their fleet, sleek and terrifying, hovered just above the tree-line. Massive ships, their surfaces gleaming with metallic coldness, cast long shadows over the jungle below. The air shimmered with energy, a ripple that distorted the very atmosphere as the Empire's ships released a rain of energy beams, carving deep scars into the land. Zane felt a rush of cold fear grip him as he watched the ships descend. They had come not just to conquer, but to claim the very thing that had brought him and Lyra together, the ancient time portal. Their ships were not just weapons of war, they were the harbingers of change, their very presence an attempt to rewrite history, to manipulate the flow of time to serve their own ends. Lyra, standing next to him, tensed. Her face, usually serene, now wore the grim expression of someone who had seen the future crumble before their eyes. "They've found us," she whispered. "They know about the portal. They won't stop until they control it." Zane turned to face her, his heart pounding. He had suspected the portal held immense power, But seeing the Empire's forces descend upon them confirmed the worst of his fears. The Empire didn't just want to conquer, they wanted to change the past, to manipulate time itself, to bend civilizations to their will. The stakes were higher than he could have imagined. As the ships lowered, a blinding light erupted from the lead vessel, and with it came the sound of distant voices, cold and mechanical, like 1,000 voices speaking in unison. It was the Empire's broadcast, announcing their arrival. "The time portal is ours," the voice echoed, empty of emotion. "Surrender or face obliteration. The past is malleable, and we will reshape it as we see fit." Zane clenched his fists. He had always been a wanderer, a survivor, but now, standing on this strange world with Lyra, he knew he could no longer run. He had to fight not just for the future of this world, but for every civilization the Empire sought to control. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing with ancient power. "We cannot allow them to change time. The consequences would be devastating. The past must remain untouched, or everything will unravel." Her voice was low but firm, each word carrying the weight of an ancient wisdom that Zane could feel in his bones. With a determined nod, Zane drew his blaster, the familiar weight of it a strange comfort in this alien world. Together, they turned towards the looming ships, knowing that the battle for time itself was about to begin. The first blast came without warning, a burst of energy that tore through the jungle, sending trees flying in every direction. Zane ducked instinctively, pulling Lyra to the ground as the shockwave passed overhead. The air was thick with the scent of burned ozone, and the ground beneath them shook with the power of the Empire's weapons. Lyra, her eyes narrowed in focus, raised her hand. A surge of energy rippled outward from her, her ancient powers manifesting in the air like a tangible force. The energy she unleashed was raw, unrefined, but it struck the incoming blast, diverting it away with a force that made Zane's heart race. It was a reminder of how much power she truly held, power the Empire could never control. "We must stop them before they reach the portal," Lyra said urgently, her voice cutting through the chaos. "If they activate it, they can rewrite everything." They sprinted towards the ancient stone arch, the portal hidden deep in a jungle, the Empire's forces closing in with each passing moment. Zane could hear the hum of their ships above, the mechanical sound of their weapons preparing for another strike. But they weren't alone. The jungle, seemingly alive with energy, began to react to their presence. Strange creatures once silent and hidden emerged from the shadows, their forms glowing with the same strange light that seemed to pulse from the portal itself. The jungle wasn't just a backdrop to their fight, it was part of it. The very earth seemed to push back against the invaders, the trees bending and shifting, their roots rising up to block the Empire's path. But the Empire had no intention of yielding. As Zane and Lyra neared the portal, the ships above began to deploy troops, their armored figures descending to the jungle floor in silver-tinted pods, their weapons drawn. Lyra glanced at Zane, her expression hardening. "This is it," she said. "We fight not just for the future of this world, but for the future of all worlds. We cannot let them control the portal." Time itself is at stake. Zane nodded, his resolve solidifying as the first of the soldiers emerged from the underbrush. He and Lyra stood ready, facing the Empire's might with nothing but their wits, their will, and the mysterious forces of the jungle on their side. The battle had only just begun, and the outcome was uncertain. But one thing was clear, they would not surrender. As the first shots rang out, Zane couldn't help but feel a surge of adrenaline, a sense of urgency that went beyond the battle itself. This was the fight that would decide the fate of not just a world, but the very fabric of time itself. And he, along with Lyra, was determined to ensure the portal was not abused. The battle raged around Zane and Lyra. The Empire's forces had surged forward with brutal precision, their metallic soldiers advancing like a relentless tide, while the air shimmered with the destructive hum of their weapons. Every blast sent waves of energy crashing through the jungle, tearing apart trees that had stood for centuries, their ancient roots now writhing in agony as the very earth seemed to scream in protest. Zane's breath came in sharp gasps as he fought back, his blaster raised, sending shots into the advancing line of soldiers. His hands shook with the weight of what was happening. This was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a fight for time itself. The portal, hidden deep in the jungle, was moments away from activation. If the Empire succeeded, they could rewrite history, reshape civilizations in their image. The past, the present, the future, all of it could be altered, twisted into something unrecognizable. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes glowing with an ancient power as she wielded her abilities with deadly precision. With a flick of her hand, she sent a blast of energy rippling through the air, knocking several soldiers off their feet. The ground beneath them shook, the pulse of her power creating a disturbance that seemed to ripple through the fabric of reality itself, as if the planet itself was reacting to the ancient forces at play. The creatures of the jungle, once passive observers, had joined the battle. They emerged from the shadows, huge, glowing beasts, their bodies covered in thick, bark-like armor, their eyes burning with a fierce intelligence. They roared in unison as they charged at the Empire's troops, their movements fluid and powerful, as if the land itself had risen up to defend the time portal. It was as though the jungle had become a living, breathing entity, fighting for its own survival, for its own history to remain unaltered. Amidst the chaos, Zane's mind raced. His heart pounded as he watched the portal's stone arch, its ancient markings glowing brightly in the distance. Time was slipping away, and they were running out of options. The Empire's forces were closing in, their weapons more advanced than anything Zane had ever seen, but the question that burned in his mind was not just about survival. It was about the decision they had to make. Should they use the portal to change the past, to prevent the cataclysmic war that had destroyed Lyra's people? Or should they allow time to unfold naturally, with all its destructive consequences, and trust that the future would find its own way? Lyra fought beside him, her face set in a grim mask of determination, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. This was her past, her people, her civilization. She knew the risks of tampering with time, But could she stand by and watch everything she had known be erased? Could she let the Empire rewrite the very fabric of existence itself? Zane, Lyra's voice was low, strained. If we change the past, there's no guarantee things will turn out better. Time is fragile. Even the smallest alteration could cause an irreversible ripple effect. Zane looked at her, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. He understood the stakes, but he also knew that if they didn't act now, everything they had fought for, everything they had lost would be gone. The Empire would erase all of it. And yet, the thought of using the portal to change the past filled him with a sense of dread, as if they were walking into a trap they could not escape. A terrifying roar echoed through the jungle, snapping Zane out of his thoughts. The largest of the creatures, a massive beast with glowing eyes and scales like iron, was locked in combat with one of the Empire's war machines. The ground trembled as the beast slammed into the machine, sending it crashing to the ground. But the battle was far from over. The Empire was relentless, their troops pushing forward, weapons blazing. "We have no time left," Zane said, his voice firm, though his chest tightened with the enormity of their choice. "We either stop them now, or we let them take everything." Lyra's eyes met his, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. The screams of the jungle, the blasts of energy, the roars of the creatures, it all became a distant hum. They were standing at the edge of time itself, and the decision they made in this moment would echo through eternity. "Then we fight," Lyra said, her voice filled with a quiet resolve. "We protect the portal, and we trust that time will guide us." With that, the decision was made. The battle escalated as the two of them, side by side, fought with everything they had. Zane, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders, fired his blaster with precision, while Lyra unleashed the full force of her ancient power, sending waves of energy rippling through the air. The creatures of the jungle fought with a primal fury, their roars shaking the very ground beneath them as they clashed with the Empire's forces. Zane's eyes never left the glowing arch of the portal. It pulsed with an eerie energy, calling to them both. The ancient stones seemed to hum with the power of untold ages, and Zane knew, deep down, that this was it, the moment that would decide everything. They fought on, but time was running out. The Empire's forces were relentless, and the portal was drawing closer to activation with every passing second. Zane could feel the fabric of reality beginning to warp around him, as if the battle for the future had already begun, and they were caught in its wake. The battle raged on around them, the pulse of energy from the Empire's weapons vibrating through the ground beneath Zane and Lyra's feet. But in the midst of the chaos, a moment of clarity settled over them like a thick fog. The time portal loomed ahead, its ancient stones glowing with a faint, mysterious light. The air around it crackled with energy, humming as if it were alive, waiting for a decision that would reshape the course of history. Zane stood still, his mind heavy with the weight of what lay before him. His eyes flickered from the portal to Lyra, her face bathed in the soft glow of the stone arch. Her expression was unreadable, but Zane could feel the tension between them, the unspoken understanding of the choice they had to make. The portal offered them the power to rewrite the past, to prevent the war that had devastated Lyra's people and changed the course of her civilization forever. But could they trust that altering time would actually make things better? Lyra's voice, steady but filled with an ancient wisdom, broke the silence. "We've seen the consequences of meddling with time," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the glowing arch. "Changing the past could undo everything we've fought for. The fabric of time is delicate. Even the smallest shift could unleash chaos upon the universe." Zane's heart clenched as he thought of the world they had come to know, the jungle, the creatures that fought alongside them, and the knowledge they had gathered. This planet, though scarred by centuries of conflict, still had the potential to heal, to rebuild itself. But only if they let it. He looked at Lyra, her face both determined and weary. "We can't take that risk," he said quietly, his voice laced with the weight of the decision. "I've spent my life exploring the unknown, seeking answers, but sometimes, the only way forward is to accept what's already happened. We can't change the past, but we can shape the future." Lyra nodded, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "You're right," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "The portal may give us the power to change everything, but that doesn't mean it should. We must accept the past for what it is, and instead, focus on what we can build now. It's the only way to ensure that my people's legacy isn't lost." Together, they turned their gaze back toward the portal, and for the first time, it didn't seem like an answer to their problems. It was just a relic, a remnant of an age-long past. A tool that could destroy more than it could save. The decision was made. They would not use the portal to change history. Instead, they would begin the long process of healing this world, restoring it with the knowledge they had gained, using the ancient power of the portal to help them. With a deep breath, Zane approached the arch. He placed his hand on the stone, feeling the hum of energy surge beneath his skin. The portal was not a weapon to be used, it was a well of untapped potential, a source of power that could help the planet recover. But instead of traveling back in time, they would use it to restore the land, heal the wounds inflicted by centuries of war and neglect. Lyra stepped beside him, her hands glowing with the same energy that coursed through the portal. Together, they focused their intentions on the land around them, reaching out with their minds, calling upon the power of the portal to revive the world. The trees began to shift, their twisted forms straightening as new growth sprouted from the ground. The once ruined landscape began to bloom with vibrant life, as if the land itself were waking from a long, painful sleep. The air, thick and oppressive moments ago, lightened, the oppressive weight lifting as the planet responded to their efforts. The earth groaned, the ancient energy stirring beneath the surface, as if the planet itself were coming to life. The jungle, which had once felt so heavy and haunted, began to take on a more peaceful, nurturing presence. Zane and Lyra stood side by side, their hands still resting on the stone, their connection to the land growing stronger with each passing moment. They were not changing the past, they were building something new, something that could grow from the ashes of the old. The creatures of the jungle, once wild and untamed, now seemed to watch with curiosity and respect, as if acknowledging the shift taking place around them. The world, once on the brink of destruction, was now beginning its slow, steady recovery, its future no longer in the hands of an empire, but in the hands of those who chose to protect it. For the first time since they had arrived, Zane felt a deep sense of peace settle in his chest. They had made the right choice not to rewrite history, but to create a new future, one that honored the lessons of the past without being bound by it. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the land, Zane and Lyra stood in silence, watching the changes unfold around them. The decision was made, and they had chosen to move forward, together. The past was behind them now, and the future lay open before them untouched, untainted, and full of possibility. The jungle had transformed. The once ravaged landscape was now a testament to the resilience of life itself, as if the very planet had breathed a sigh of relief and renewed its commitment to growth. Trees stretched their limbs high into the sky, their leaves glistening with a vibrancy Zane had never imagined possible. The ground, once scarred by the fires of battle, now pulsed with a steady beat of life, lush and full of promise. The once oppressive air was lighter, filled with the scent of blossoms and fresh soil. But more than just the land had changed. Zane and Lyra stood on the edge of a new world, a world they had built together not just from the ashes of the past, but with the wisdom gleaned from every hardship, every lesson learned. The time portal, now carefully guarded and protected, was no longer a tool for rewriting history. Instead, it had become a symbol of potential, a beacon for the future. Zane stood before the structure they had spent months building, a vast, ancient academy. Its design was an intricate blend of the old world and new, the stone walls adorned with the ancient markings from the portal, but now renewed with purpose. Tall, graceful arches framed the entrance, where a golden light flickered through the gaps, casting a serene glow on the pathway leading inside. "We've come so far," Zane said quietly, watching as a group of young students, representatives from various civilizations, gathered at the entrance of the academy. The crystalline glow from the portal cast long shadows, but it was no longer an ominous force. Now, it was a source of knowledge, a reminder of the responsibility that came with such power. Lyra nodded, her gaze scanning the horizon. The portal, like the land, has become something new. It's no longer a weapon or a tool for selfish gain. It's a chance for all of us to learn, to grow, to move forward without repeating the mistakes of the past. The academy was bustling with energy, its halls filled with the voices of those eager to learn, to understand the responsibility that came with mastering the forces of time. Students from different corners of the universe had traveled to this world, bringing with them knowledge of their own, but also a burning desire to understand the lessons of the past and how they could shape the future without repeating history's darkest chapters. Zane and Lyra moved through the halls, their footsteps echoing in the quiet corridors, now bathed in the light of hope. The academy was a safe haven, a place where the misuse of power would be taught as a dangerous path, a place where the pursuit of wisdom would be encouraged, not just for personal gain, but for the collective good of all civilizations. As they stood in the center of the academy, Zane could feel the weight of the moment. He wasn't just the explorer he once was. He was a leader, a guide for those who sought to understand the mysteries of the universe. And beside him, Lyra stood as the embodiment of the strength it took to accept the past and build from it, to move forward with hope and purpose. "We have done more than just survive, Zane," Lyra said, her voice strong yet filled with a quiet awe. "We've begun to create something meaningful. A future where the mistakes of the past are not forgotten, but understood so they are never repeated." Zane turned toward the portal, its light soft but steady, a reminder of the boundless potential that lay ahead. The future wasn't written yet, but they had begun to write the first pages of a new chapter, a chapter where the power to change time was understood not as something to wield in pursuit of domination, but as a tool for healing, for growth. As Zane and Lyra stood there, watching the students move about, talking about the future and their dreams, they knew their mission was far from over. The academy would continue to grow, and its teachings would spread across the galaxy, helping others avoid the mistakes that had once threatened to tear their worlds apart. The last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the academy in a soft, golden glow. The jungle around them stood tall, as if in silent homage to the new era they had just begun. Zane felt a deep, quiet sense of peace settle over him. The choices they had made, the choices to build, not to destroy, to understand, not to rewrite, had brought them here, to this moment, where they could look forward with hope. The future stretched out before them, not as a realm of uncertainty, but as a canvas, waiting to be painted with the vibrant colors of what was possible. And as they walked toward the academy's gates, side by side, Zane knew this was just the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with unknowns, but now they had the knowledge and the wisdom to face whatever came next. They had not only survived, they had transformed. And the world, in all its mystery and wonder, was waiting for them to lead it into the light of a new day. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, Zane and Lyra stood side by side, the time portal behind them glowing softly, no longer a threat but a symbol of everything they had fought for. The jungle, once a place of chaos and destruction, now thrived with new life, its pulse in sync with the future they had just begun to build. The weight of their decision hung in the air, but the feeling of relief, of purpose, was undeniable. They hadn't chosen to rewrite history. They hadn't risked the fabric of time itself. Instead, they chose to build from what remained, to heal, to create a new path forward, not just for themselves, but for all civilizations that would come after. The portal, once a doorway to the past, had become a beacon for the future, a place where knowledge would be shared, where power would be used responsibly, and where peace would be the ultimate goal. But as they looked to the horizon, a new question began to form: what other mysteries lay waiting, beyond the stars, beyond time itself? The universe was vast, and their journey was far from over. Zane and Lyra had only just begun to scratch the surface of the mysteries that awaited them, and the future they had set in motion was full of endless possibilities. Now, we turn it over to you. What would you have done in their place? Would you have changed the past, or would you have chosen to forge a new future from what remains? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear what you think. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Galactic Conundrums. We've got more thrilling adventures and cosmic mysteries coming your way. Until next time, stay curious, stay adventurous, and always question the unknown.